Today, we're going deep. We're getting into one of the most intense, most controversial, and honestly, most fascinating books ever written on the warrior mindset. We're talking about the Hagakure, a text that makes a pretty shocking argument. The only way you can ever truly live is to first die in your mind. All right, let's get into it.
Right there. That's the core of it. And you've got to understand, this isn't some polite suggestion, it's a command. The whole philosophy hinges on this one terrifying idea that if you're not constantly, and I mean daily, aware of your own death, you can never be free. You can never be decisive. You can never be powerful. It's a thought that's going to challenge pretty much everything you think you know about being alive. So to really wrap our heads around this radical way of thinking, we're going to break it down into 5 key ideas. We'll start with a daily death ritual, then see how that feels split-second decisions. After that, we'll dive into why mastery requires a little madness, the strange power of secret love, and finally, we'll hit that ultimate paradox. You have to die to live. Okay, first up, the morning death ritual. And let's be clear, this is not a metaphor. The author, Yamamoto Tsunetomo, he literally demands that every morning you sit down and rehearse your own violent end. Why? Because he was convinced it was the only way to completely destroy fear and live with absolute purpose. And he's incredibly specific about how you do this. He says you have to vividly, graphically imagine it all. Picture yourself being torn apart by arrows, or being struck down by lightning, maybe even wasting away from some horrible disease. It's kind of like a brutal form of exposure therapy, right? The goal is to face the absolute worst-case scenario in your own head, so it loses its power over you. Once you fully accept it, you open your eyes, and you're already a corpse. What's wild is that this isn't just some shocking, isolated idea from feudal Japan. It actually has really deep philosophical roots. I mean, look at this quote from the Stoic philosopher Seneca. It's almost the exact same practice. They called it premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils. Turns out, both the samurai and the Stoics believed that if you mentally rehearse tragedy, you basically rob it of its sting. So the whole point of this morbid exercise is actually meant to be liberating. I mean, if you've already died in your mind before you've even had breakfast, what's left to be afraid of? Every single moment after that, every conversation, every meal, it's all a bonus. It's a gift. But you have to ask the question, is this genuine freedom? Or is it just a dark, twisted obsession that makes you devalue the one life you actually have? So if you're practicing dying every single morning, how does that actually change how you act? Well, if you truly have no fear of consequences, it completely rewires how you make decisions. What the Hagakure says is it makes you incredibly, radically decisive. 7. That's it. That's the magic number. The rule is just brutally simple. If you take longer than 7 breaths to make a decision, you've already failed. You're lost in your head. And in this philosophy, thinking is the enemy of doing. And this is where you see the massive clash with our world today. I mean, we're all plagued by analysis paralysis, right? We debate tiny choices for days, sometimes weeks. The Hagakure sees this as a modern disease. Its whole argument is that a quick, gut decision, even if it's not perfect, is way better than the right decision that comes too late. It's all about pure forward momentum. But let's pump the brakes here for a second. I mean, read that quote. Treat matters of great concern lightly? Is that profound wisdom, or is that just reckless? Should we really be taking advice on life or death decisions from a guy who is basically a peacetime administrator? Can you really afford to be that casual when the stakes are high? All right, let's get into the third and maybe the most controversial part of this whole philosophy. It's complete and utter rejection of balance. You know, we're all obsessed with work-life balance. It's like the holy grail. The Hagakure basically spits on that idea. The book uses this really powerful Japanese word, Kichigai. It translates to madness or fanaticism. And we're not just talking about working hard. No, this is about a total, all-consuming obsession. The idea is that to achieve true mastery of anything, whether it's the sword, art, or business, you simply cannot be a balanced person. You have to be willing to look completely insane to everybody else. And this quote just cuts right to the bone. Moderation, according to Tsunetomo, is just a recipe for being average, for being mediocre. He's saying that if you want to be a legend, you have to push way past what's reasonable, way past what's comfortable. You have to enter a state of pure fanatical devotion. So yeah,
The takeaway is pretty blunt. Greatness requires a bit of madness. But here comes the big twist. The man who wrote all of these incredibly extreme things, he wasn't some battle-scarred warrior. He was a scribe, a bureaucrat who lived his entire life during an era of peace. He never once set foot on a battlefield. And that context, well, it changes everything, doesn't it? Is this the code of a true warrior? Or is it the romantic, violent fantasy of a guy who is just frustrated with his own comfortable, soft world? And this romantic fantasy had some very dark, very real-world consequences. See, after being pretty much forgotten for 200 years, the book was dug up in the 20th century and twisted into a tool for nationalist propaganda. It was used to convince young soldiers to embrace fanaticism and throw their lives away for the empire. It's a chilling reminder of just how dangerous these ideas can be when you swallow them whole without any critical perspective. Okay, for our fourth point, we're going to shift gears. We're moving from the battlefield to the heart. Now, you'd probably think a philosophy so obsessed with death and madness wouldn't have much to say about love, right? Well, you'd be wrong. The Hagakure has this really unique, powerful, and very stoic take on romance. The whole concept is called shinobukoi. It literally means concealed love. And the core idea is that the deepest, most powerful kind of love is the kind you never, ever speak out loud. Think about that. It's the absolute polar opposite of our modern world, where we're all about communication and expressing every single feeling. The psychology behind this is kind of wild, but it makes a certain kind of sense. The Hagakure argues that when you talk about a powerful emotion, you let its energy escape. You dissipate it. But if you hold it inside, if you keep that love a profound secret, you create this immense internal pressure. It's like steam building up in an engine. That contained energy becomes this incredible fuel for discipline, for training, for action. Your unexpressed love becomes the silent engine driving your entire life. And that brings us to our final section, where all these different threads have to come together. We've got the believer's argument for a radical path to freedom on one side, and the skeptic's warning about a dangerous fantasy on the other. It's time to face the final central contradiction of the Hagakure. So let's lay it all out one last time. Rehearse death to be free. Act on pure instinct. Embrace total obsession. Use secret love as fuel. Basically, live as though you are already dead. From one point of view, it's a perfect system for smashing through fear and hesitation and living a life of incredible purpose. This quote right here sums up that promise of freedom perfectly. But, and this is a huge but, we have to remember the context. This amazing psychological tool, this freedom in the way, it didn't come from a master swordsman on the battlefield. It came from a frustrated clerk in an office, fantasizing about a life he never got to live. So, does that make the wisdom fake, or does it just make it more human? And that really is the whole point of this book. The Hagakure isn't a rule book, it's a mirror. It's designed to force you to ask yourself some really hard questions. What do you truly believe? What do you value? How do you deal with fear? And when your own heart starts asking these things, what are you going to say back? So in the end, this is the question you're left holding. And the book doesn't give you any easy answers. It's a razor's edge. Is it a timeless guide to unlocking your potential? Or is it the dangerous fantasy of a bitter man? The text doesn't decide for you. That's on you. And so we end right where we began, with the Hagakure's final haunting challenge. Whether you think it's profound wisdom or absolute madness, it forces you to wonder, what would actually change in your life, starting right now, if you truly, fully accepted that you were already dead? That's the question beating at the dark heart of the samurai's code.